Welcome, fellow bookworms and film fans. Welcome to this week's episode of The Contented Narrative. It is a book review of The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. Now, Neil Gaiman is a brilliant author. I've got loads of his books. Honestly, it's just, he's sort of like Stephen King for young adults, is how I would probably put it. It's not as gory, it's not as horrific, and this was the very, very first book that I ever read by Neil Gaiman. I read it way back when I was in secondary school, and I think I borrowed it from my library. So it was really good. So basically, it starts off a little bit dark. It does start off a little bit dark. So basically, a little baby who's about 1 year old escapes a house where someone has just killed his mum, his dad, and his sister. He then ends up in a graveyard and is basically adopted by the ghosts of the graveyard and given the freedom of the graveyard. And he ends up with a guardian called Silas, who, it's never said what he is, but he can't really move about in daylight that much, and he's got like powers, but he's like a vampire but not a vampire. He's like, you know, it's honestly brilliant. And it kind of deals with the whole graveyard, like how do ghosts raise a child? And it's still got sort of like the plot of like this the person that killed his family is still after him and still looking for him, but can't find him because he's in a graveyard and he never deals with human interactions. And it's just a fantastic little adventure. It really is. My one little thing is when I reread this a couple of months ago to do it for this channel, I realised that at the end of the book he turns 16 and then he's kind of sent on his way because he can't see the ghosts anymore. And he's sent on his way with a passport and a bit of money into the big wide world. But he's 16. He doesn't have a job, he doesn't have qualifications, he doesn't have an address, you know, he doesn't have a family. I do find it a little bit problematic that has happened. But other than that, it's a fantastic book. This is a I can't put it down kind of book. This is you start reading and you just kind of, it's such a nice story. It's a story of ghosts raising a child that they call Nobody Owens, by the way. Nobody, like, who calls a kid Nobody? And looking at how he kind of, as he grows, what he needs from society, what he needs from his family, and then kind of like coming to terms with who he is. And it's just lovely. I mean, I've never had a problem with Neil Gaiman, and this, as I said, is the very first book I ever read by him, and it's a ghost story. As I said, it's a little bit dark at the beginning because, you know, his entire family is murdered, and he is almost murdered if it wasn't for the fact that he escapes into the graveyard. But it's so fun because you see him as he's growing up, he's learning history from people that lived it. So obviously what you get taught in history books, and I'm guessing what you would have been taught from someone that lives it, is two completely different things, because history books are very factual. Whereas if, for example, I hate saying the C word, but if, for example, the COVID situation, if you read it in a history book whenever they start learning it in history, would that necessarily be the same thing as your own experience? So, you know, your own experience might have been, oh, I was working from home, I was fine. Like I've been working from home, I'm fine, you know. And the isolation was a little bit much, but, you know, but then you might have the history books being very factual with what was happening and not looking at the personal side of it. So I love that he's learning like his letters and his history and everything from ghosts, and he's learning how to speak from ghosts, because obviously different time frames, different words. So, you know, slang from Elizabethan England isn't the same kind of slang from, say, Romans, isn't the same kind of slang from 21st century. Obviously there wouldn't be any sort of 21st century ghosts in there, because I don't know, like, when was this written? So this one was written, let's have a look. So it was first published in 2009. So, you know, the 21st century slang wouldn't have been in there, but it's so fun to sort of like see how he interacts, and then when he comes across humans, how he interacts with humans and how he kind of grows as a person. And as I said, the only problem is the ending, because you kind of sat there going, but he's alone. He's a child. He's 16 years old. You've sent him out with a passport, a little bit of money, fine, but no idea how to live. But apart from that, it's brilliant. And I would always say give anything by Neil Gaiman a read, because he's just such a great author. He really is. And I've always wondered why more of his work hasn't been been adapted. You had American Gods adapted, but I wonder why none of these other works have been, because they're quite lovely stories and they're quite easy, I think, probably to do, especially in this day and age with the situation that we've got. But this gets a 4 out of 5 from me. It's not a 5 out of 5. It was close to being a 5 out of 5. I think if it wasn't for the ending, I definitely would have been a 5 out of 5. The ending doesn't ruin a story, by the way. I haven't ruined a story by telling you how it ends at all. But yeah, so give it a go. If you do read any of these book recommendations or any of the book to film recommendations or watch a film based on what I've recommended, please do let me know, because I'd love to know if I'm actually making a difference. Do spread the word of the Contented Narrative. Do join me on Facebook. Do join me on Instagram. I'm more than happy to have discussions with people. I do have a book club as well going. So we started meeting in August, and we will continue meeting one day every month. So always a chance to join and have fun. So spread the word. Don't forget to click subscribe so that you're alerted whenever a new video comes out. But thank you so much for your continued support, and remember to always keep it contento.